Sam Bassal from Ocean Grove. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you for having me, mate.
You got a new album coming out on November 22 called Odd World. Over what period of time was this album created?
So yeah, there'd be a few songs that were created, I almost want to say in 2017, 2018. Some hidden gems and some demos that were never completed and sort of never utilized really. But we made this record throughout the better half of 2023 and earlier this year, I think, if I'm correct in saying that. Feels like 5 years have gone past since I hit export on my computer.
In some of the press release chat I've seen with the band, you've been saying there wasn't any external influences with this album, or you didn't want anyone else's input. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so for majority, I want to say at this point, almost the entirety of our band's career, sort of from 2012 onwards or 2013 onwards, really, um, it's all been produced in-house and by myself, and I've taken on pretty much the main songwriting duties as well as all production and mixing and mastering has been all in-house by myself, and it's definitely not a case of we don't want anyone else, because I'll be the first person to say there is probably a million people out there that can do uh, the service I provide for Ocean Grove probably better, a lot better than I can. But it just keeps it easy. It keeps it in house for us is kind of cool for us to be able to produce a high quality product that we can at the end of the day say it was our thoughts and processes that got us here, and it sounds the way it is, whether that's good or bad, because it's come from someone in Ocean Grove, and we're trying to create our sound versus someone else's sound, I guess you could say. But we like it that way. It seems to be going well so far. We've done four records now this way, five including an EP. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with the next one. I'll see if I can be bothered sitting on my computer that long again.
Uh, Going back and listening to Outsider, your first EP, and then comparing it to Odd World, the new album, where the band has really developed is in leaps and bounds is in production.
Beautiful.
Are there other bands or producers whose work you've admired that you've taken a leaf out of their book?
I think I think a really interesting thing. The funny part for me and the awesome part is Outside is the only one I haven't touched, which is awesome. So I'll take that as a win. I think in heavy music, it's always I don't want to say there are standards, but I'll always say from a production side, there's almost an unspoken rule book of a few things that you kind of have to follow to be competitive sound and mix wise, I guess, with other artists in the same genre. So I think I definitely pay attention to the trends that are on display within the genre that we're in, and sort of what do the big bands sound like, what are the up and coming bands sounding like, and just to make sure that whatever I put forward, from a listening experience is competitive and not going to fall flat when it's played, in today's very playlisting, streaming heavy world, from that standpoint. But I like a lot of influences necessarily that aren't even in the heavy world, that we're a part of. Probably my favorite production group of all time is a group called the Neptunes, which is Pharrell and Chad Hugo, and they did all the kind of classic early 2000s pop songs that have stood the the test of time, and they're still getting played today. So probably a mixture of what the popular heavy world um, mixers are doing, and then the very cool production techniques from back in the early 2000s, I'd say, is my favorite.
Yeah. The longest song on the album is 3 minutes 33. Some don't make it to 3 minutes. Short songs are a theme with the band.
Yeah.
What's the philosophy behind that?
There's probably a long pros and cons list, I'd say that, because there's an element where you'd go, if you were to tell someone 10 to 15 years ago that an album was going to comprise of songs that don't even make it to 3 minutes 30, they'd go, what do you mean? um, I think the state of music today overall as a whole, I think the attention spans of people are getting shorter and shorter. And it's quite popular for, even sub 2 minute songs to be considered hits these days, as long as there's a catchy hook and there's something for people to latch onto. I think for me, it's a personal taste thing that I kind of liked, particularly on this record, maybe cutting some of the filler that would be used to maybe just extend a song a little bit and just focusing more on the parts that I like hearing about a song or wanting to hear a song. Maybe that's it's an extra chorus that you get versus a bridge section or a second verse, where Ocean Grove are definitely privy to not having a second verse quite often. It's a writing thing of mine. But I think it's just got to be a personal taste thing. I think I've just not really looked at time length and gone, this feels about right. That'll do. So I definitely don't feel like I need to add anything longer. And it kind of ended up where it ended up.
Yeah. So are you able to expand songs live on stage, or is there too much programming involved that you can't do that?
There's a little bit too much on the tech side, which um, I definitely can. And there's quite a few things we'll do live that extend some songs, whether it is, they might just have longer intros and moments about the songs before we even play the songs, but they're familiarized before we start said song, and they're kind of dragged out to create an experience. We extend a few songs, say if there's a big heavy moment coming up, we want some big crowd participation, we'll extend out a song and let the crowd do their thing, and then we'll kind of kick it in from there and things like that. So there's definitely too much programming that goes on to that side of things, but we do find our way to make that work when we can.
Yeah. There's a massive guitar sound on the album. How did you go about achieving that?
So I used for this record, I used a Jackson guitar. I couldn't tell you the model of it, but it was graciously gifted to me by Heath at Jackson and Fender. It was a baritone guitar, so it had a longer neck. I know that much. 6 string. It was tuned to drop A sharp, so predominantly this record is in drop A sharp tuning. And I went straight into a Universal Audio Apollo DI, and I used amp sims. I used some plugins. I want to say that this record it's definitely, there's a plugin company called Neural DSP, and they make some fantastic guitar plugins. And I want to say it's one of their plugins, one of their archetype plugins. And then for the cabinet sound, to get the overall guitar sound, it's based on a mixture of impulse responses of cabinets that I've just had lying around forever. Like I want to say a blend of quite a few different cabinets. But yeah, it's definitely, the guitars are quite large. I think another reason that they're quite pumpy, if that makes sense. They're quite punchy. And there's a bit of side chaining things between the drums to make sure the guitars sort of sound the way they do.
Yeah. Is there a track on the album that you're particularly proud of?
For many reasons, I could probably pick a few different songs and they'd have a different reason as to why they would be my favorite. Um, there is a song on the record called Last Dance, which is one of my favorite songs, and that's more of a ballad number, more of a sort of 90s rock ballad. Um, I think I'm most proud of that because it's just such a beautiful song that I think I'll be able to come back as I get older and look back at things I've made in my life. And I'd probably look at a song like that and go, that's a beautiful piece of music. I'll be pretty proud of that. But I could look at majority of I'd say the singles on this record and go, I'm particularly fond of these and I love the energy that they create. You know, we like to be a bit of a hyped band and get people jumping around and have some fun. And, you know, even though it's a serious thing, we still want, fun to be an element of it.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your drumming. Did you have drum heroes growing up?
The funniest thing for me is that I didn't really. And the thing that I found that I did look for in drummers was I'm open-handed. So I'm actually left-handed, but I play on a right-handed drum kit. So for me, rather than playing crossed-armed like that, I play like this. And so I think when I was growing up, versus looking at, say, maybe the most popular drummers at the time, I always tried to look for the drummers that were playing open-handed like me, and I would say, wow, like there's someone else that we play similar ways, and I can look to them as an inspiration. So I'd have to say there's probably one drummer that I really think I play, quite similar to, and always liked his style a lot because of that reason. And it's a guy named Alan Rubin, and he went on to play. He's been the drummer for Nine Inch Nails, Angels and Airwaves. He played for a rock band, Paramore, for a little bit. Probably I'd have to say Alan Rubin. He's probably one person that I like, but I can't skip past John Otto from Limp Bizkit in regards to just overall groove of playing sort of bouncy new metal style, I'd have to say.
Yeah. Um, and your current kit setup?
Current kit setup. I'm very fortunate to be sponsored by or endorsed by Pearl drums, Zildjian cymbals, Remo sticks. So I currently have a top of the line Pearl reference pure drum kit. And I'm very simple, sort of one rack tom, one floor tom. But on this record, I've got a little 10-inch popcorn snare, which I use on this record in quite a few verses and little moments of the song to go into that very high tuned snare realm, just for some fun, to have something different to do, which is really cool because that was new for me. I hadn't done that on a record before, so. Bringing two snares to the live environment has been really awesome, and I've had a lot of good feedback on that.
Yeah. So apart from drumming, what else do you have to be aware of when you're playing a show?
So I handle all of our production. So I am in charge of our playback, making sure our playback works, all of our digital amp digital amp systems and modelers are working, which the guitar and bass run through, and making sure that the computer handles all those changes. I'm also in charge of mixing our in-ears, making sure what we hear on stage is not horrible and everyone can hear what they need to hear, which is quite intensive to do, but fortunately with the gear that we have these days, it's pretty easy for me to sit at the kit and still have all those things under control even though I'm playing, which is really nice.
Yeah. So are you able to enjoy playing drums on stage?
I am. Don't get me wrong, I'm always thinking about, is the laptop still running? Is this still working? Is this going? But when the shows are good and I'm in the zone, then I feel like I don't have to worry about that stuff, and it's all sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might be time for someone else to do it and not me, I'll say that.
And how are the new songs going to scrub up live? Have you played any as yet?
Yes, we have. We've played, I want to say, three of our singles off this record. We've been taking them on tour, and it's been a really good response. Where I think sometimes playing newer songs can always take time for people to learn them and kind of even from our end to play them the way that we want to and find the groove of how we want to play the songs live. So I think earlier this year we were on a longer tour of, I want to say, 25 or 22 shows. We did a regional tour over the space of 5 weeks. And I think in that 5 weeks, we were very quickly able to uh, hone in on some of these newer songs and work out how we should play them and how they feel. And I'd say now we feel pretty confident and excited to be able to tour the new record. I think this record was made with live purpose in mind, and so I can't wait to play it for people and kind of show them off in a live environment, because live music is always a pleasure, for people to come and hear songs nice and loud, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Looking at your website, I don't think there are any tour dates announced yet. I guess that will happen in the very near future.
Yeah, so I think we've toured pretty hard this year, pretty relentlessly. So I think just to close out the year, I think we're still looking at what we're doing to close out the year. But if it is that we have played our last show this year, it's been a very busy and successful year for the band, and I guess just gearing up for a very, very busy 2025, knowing that there's an album that'll be out and needing to be toured, and hoping to reach kind of a lot of the regions we didn't get to go to. I think we've put a really big emphasis on Europe the last few years, and I think we haven't really given much time to the US. So it'd be good to try and next year go over to the US and touch base with our fans over there, because it's been a very long time since we've been back. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, the album is Oddworld. It's out November 22. It's been great to chat, Sam, and all the best with everything.
Beautiful. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for your time, mate.